So we are now getting reports that the United States has the ability to end a major war today. We could see this war end immediately, but the United States would have to step in and actually work this negotiation. I will explain more on that in just a moment. But according to experts, this is actually a lose-lose situation for the United States. And this could be why this country is putting the United States in its crosshairs, because it is a lose-lose situation. So I will address that in just a moment. All I ask is one thing, takes 2 seconds. Go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. So in just a moment, I'm going to explain why the United States is put into a lose-lose situation. But first, I want to show you this. This is what we're talking about. This is an article from Bloomberg that just came out today. It says, Putin sends U.S. signal on Ukraine talks, sensing advantage in the war. Now, why would the Russian President Vladimir Putin think that he has an advantage in this war? Well, it's pretty simple. According to reports, if Ukraine does not get additional funding, then they will likely lose the war. This is not from Russian officials. This is from the Biden administration, the Pentagon, other world leaders believe that if Ukraine does not get additional assistance, whether it's from the United States or another country, Ukraine is going to lose. Okay? So, where do we go from here? Well, here's what we know. Russia is saying that they sent signals to the United States several weeks ago to talk about the possibility of negotiating and ending this war with Ukraine. Well, Ukraine says they don't believe Russia's intentions are true. They don't think they're going to negotiate in good faith. But this could be big news. This could be a breaking thing for the United States, because one thing that we know is that voters here in the United States do not want to be at war. They don't want the United States to be at war with anybody. Anytime there's a war, voters start to think about what has gone on over the past year, 2 years, or during the course of the administration. And over the past 3 years, we have seen a war, we've seen obviously a pandemic, we've seen inflation, we've seen a lot of crises happen. So, if the Biden administration could get us out of this war, it could be big news for the Biden administration and Democrats. But some say it is a lose-lose situation. I'll explain that in just a moment. Now, here's what I can tell you. The problem that Ukraine has right now is that they need to pretty much get out of this. They need to get additional funding. They need additional support, which the United States and other countries have said that they would provide it for them. Problem is, are we really going to do that? Well, we don't know. The reason why I say this is because last year, the United States and other countries sent Ukraine tens of billions of dollars in additional resources and support. Well, guess what? Ukraine was still unable to push Vladimir Putin and the Russian troops back enough to get their country back. So guess what? Now, Ukraine is asking for even more. And the United States and other countries are expecting to give about $110 billion to Russia, or to Ukraine, in order to fight off Russia. But many worry that will still not be enough. Now I want to read you something from this article from Bloomberg. Look at this, okay? Because this is what we're talking about now. It says right here, Putin, they said, may be willing to consider dropping an insistence on neutral status for Ukraine and even ultimately abandon opposition to eventually NATO membership. That is big, because that is one thing that Russia said they could not have. They could not join NATO. But, says the threat of which has been a central Russian justification for the invasion. And we knew that. We knew that coming in, that Russia was going to invade if Ukraine was expecting to join NATO, which they were. Now, I want to read you one other thing, because this right here is huge. Look at this. It says, but it would come at a cost that Kyiv has rejected outright. What is that? Well, it's the acceptance of Kremlin control over territory it has come to occupy in recent years in what now amounts to about 18% of Ukraine, including land seized after the start of its invasion 2 years ago. So what we now know is that Russia is asking for Ukraine to pretty much accept the fact that the Kremlin is going to control this territory, which is almost 20% of Ukraine. It's over 18% of Ukraine. Now, why is this a lose-lose situation for the Biden administration and for the United States? Well, here's why. According to reports, this is a lose-lose situation because if the U.S. talks Ukraine into accepting this deal, then Ukraine is going to give away 18% of their country from this invasion. Well, guess who's also looking at this particular war? China. China is looking at the United States and looking at this conflict between the U.S. and Russia and trying to determine, is this something that they could potentially go and overtake Taiwan? Well, the answer is yes. If the United States looks weak in this situation, then China may decide to invade Taiwan. Again, we've heard from President Xi Jinping that he is going to reunify mainland China with Taiwan at some point. He even told President Biden himself directly when they're in San Francisco. But if the United States says, no, we cannot allow Ukraine to give up 18% of their country, and they decide to continue on with this war, well, the United States is going to have to provide some additional support, additional arms, additional funding, because if they don't, like I said, voters are looking at this. And if we see that the United States is not going to push Ukraine to accept this deal, and we also see the United States doesn't push Congress to provide additional funding, well, we're pretty much allowing Ukraine to fail. Remember, Ukraine was part of the biggest talks, biggest discussions. It was the biggest story 2 years ago. But then, this past year, another story emerged. And that is when Hamas attacked Israel and took over 230 hostages. So that is now part of the big story. The next one is what is happening between these Iranian proxies and the United States. That's the big story now. So again, Ukraine and Russia still a major issue, but it's hit the back burner because there's other higher priorities right now for the United States. And one of them is the presidential election that is coming up this year. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. But the concern right now is the United States going to be able to end this war between Russia and Ukraine? Well, according to reports, the United States does not know if Russia is even serious. In this article and some other articles, the United States or multiple Pentagon officials are saying that they haven't been reached out to by Russian officials. We haven't heard anything from Ukrainian officials either, or President Zelensky. So at this time, the concern is that Russia may be playing these Russian games, trying to entice the United States into negotiating this. But in the end, it may never happen. All I can tell you is that the United States could end this war today. According to reports, the United States could end this war today. But they would have to tell Ukraine to concede control of a certain part of their country. This is one of the reasons why many Republicans cannot wait for former President Donald Trump to take office. Meaning that they want him, obviously, to take office. Hopefully then he would go and win the presidential election. But we don't know. We're still many months away. We have no clue what's going to happen. But over the past couple of years, former President Donald Trump has stated that he could end this war between Russia and Ukraine in one day. And according to reports, it could happen, but Ukraine would likely have to concede control over a certain area of their country. And I don't know if they're willing to do that. But it could save lives, could save a lot of money over the next year or two, but we just don't know. So that's kind of where things are at the moment. As soon as we get more information, I promise I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates, but that is what we know as of today. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.